Hey guys, today we're going to be going over the uses of the touch sensor in EV3 Mindstorms. So just to begin, if you all have a touch sensor on your robot, it's a small block with a red thing that you can push on the edge of it. You can also attach an axle or anything of that like if possible. And basically what it does is it'll read a value based on whether or not the touch sensor is being pressed. And in this sense, it's really similar to a button. Uh, and this is super useful because, especially in EV3 programming, what you can do is you can wait for the touch sensor to be pressed, and then after it's pressed or while it's being pressed, you can do a certain action. Alternatively, you can do an action while the touch sensor is not being pressed or is not being held down. So there are a lot of different uses for it. So let's get started. So there are actually two ways of programming the touch sensor in EV3 Mindstorms. Just to get started, I'd like to say that over here on this yellow section, you have a section called Sensors. And here are all of the sensors that are in EV3 or NXT or anything else. And if you go over here and you look at the touch sensor block, this block is actually used to measure states, to measure and compare states. So it's more for actually attempting to get a value from the touch sensor as opposed to the block that we're going to be using. So for now, just keep this on the side. We're not going to be using it for now. Instead, the block that we're going to be using is this wait block. So the structure goes like this. First, you're going to want to go to action and then drag out a move steering or a move tank block. For now, I'm just going to use move tank. And then set it to on. So what this means is that currently, as of now, if I ran this program, what do you think the robot would do? So the robot would just keep on going forward, and it would never stop until the program ends, or until you forcibly end the program. So we need to have some sort of exit parameter, some sort of wait for option, and that's where the wait for block comes in. So right over here, if you go to the orange section, which is flow control, and then go ahead and drag out this wait block. And so what this does right now is currently it's set to time, meaning that it'll go and then it'll wait for 1 second in this case, but we don't want this value. So if you look over here, there are several kind of states that can be used, or several sensors and stuff like that. For now, we're just going to want to go to the touch sensor, compare, so we're comparing a value, and then state. So we're comparing the state of the touch sensor. And if you notice, there's several different states that the touch sensor can take. I was referring to this before, but the one that you're probably most going to be using is pressed, which means that the robot will do a certain thing when the touch sensor is pressed. So if I press the touch sensor right now, the robot will do an action. Over here, we have released, meaning that the robot will do something when the touch sensor is released. So this could be if the touch sensor is being held down for a while, or for the majority of the program, only when it gets released can an action be done. And then bumped. This one is a little bit more complicated, so we're not going to be using it for now. So just go ahead and set that to pressed, and then assign the sensor to whatever port it's in. And then finally, we're going to want to drag another move tank or move steering block, and this time set it to off. So what this means is that the robot will go forward until the touch sensor is pressed, and then when the touch sensor is pressed, it'll turn off, meaning that it'll stop the program. Alright, so if you want to go ahead and run this program, so what you may have seen this do is it'll go forward, you touch the touch sensor, and the robot will stop. Now we're going to make this a little bit more complicated. Actually, not now. So we've got that down for now. And now I'm going to introduce you guys to the other way of programming the touch sensor. But first of all, what's really useful about this structure is that it can be used to it's super useful for other sensors as well as the touch sensor. So if you go ahead to watch the color sensor lesson in the future, which we're going to be going into later, that essentially uses the exact same kind of formula, in the sense that it'll be move tank on, wait for block, and then stop. So we're going to be using this a lot in the future. Alright, so go ahead and drag that out. And I mentioned before that there's one other way to program the touch sensor, and that's by using a loop. So previously when we were using loops, if you want to go ahead to flow control, drag out your loop block. Previously when we were using loops, we just did it to kind of extend a program or make the program more convenient. For example, if you guys did that square program. But here we're going to be using it for the touch sensor. So if you look over here, currently it's set to unlimited. So let's go ahead and go back to the green section and drag out that move tank or move steering block and set it to on. So currently, if we ran this program right now, what do you think it would do? Right, so if this program were to be run right now, the robot would just continue moving because first of all, this is set to on and it's going in unlimited times. So it would just keep on going without any exit parameter. So this little parameter over here is the exit value. It means what you need to do, what you need to fulfill in order to get the loop to stop. So if you click on that, and you can see that there are several options. For instance, you can choose a brick button. Right now, we're just going to be using the touch sensor. Go ahead over to state, and keep that at bumped. So right now, what this program will do is it'll execute whatever's in the loop, which is just move forward at 50 speed, and then it'll stop the program when the touch sensor is bumped. So if you guys want to go ahead and run that program and see what happens. So as you can see, when I press the touch sensor, the program stops. All right. So now for a challenge, what I want you guys to do is to make the robot go forward until the touch sensor is pressed, then go backward for one rotation, take an 180-degree turn, and then move forward for one rotation. So go ahead and try that on. So in the meantime, I'm just going to do it over here. And I'll show both methods of solving it. So first, I'm just going to start out with the move forward weight block formula. So we set that to on, drag out the weight block, touch sensor, compare. Don't use change for this one. And then set that to off. Move tank, set it to off. Here we go. So this will do the same thing. So right now, it'll move forward and then stop when the touch sensor is pressed. But I mentioned that we have to go backward for one rotation, take an 180-degree turn, and then go forward for one rotation. So let's do that. So we're going to want to drag our move tank block out here. And we'll say -1 rotation. Alternatively, you can also set these 50. You can do -50, -50, and just one rotation. So what this will do right now is that it'll move the robot backward at 50 power for one rotation. Now let's do an 180-degree turn. And if you remember, to do an 180-degree turn, you simply need to kind of reverse the values. So one value should be the negative of another. If you wanted to do a 90-degree turn, it would be 0, and the other value would be 50. But here we're doing an 180-degree turn, so -50 and 50. And now we're just going to go forward for one rotation. So move tank, one rotation, perfect. So this is your program if you were using the weight block. Instead, if you were using the loop block, here's how you would do that. Let's go ahead and drag this out. We're going to put our loop block here. Set the touch sensor state to 1, which is pressed. And then go ahead and put a move tank block, set it to on, and then just go ahead and drag this, attach it, and there we go. That's our program. So these two, so this and what we just did with the weight block, do the exact, they have the exact same purpose. And they both do the exact same thing. So you can use whichever one you want. It's kind of similar to move tank and move steering, whichever one suits you best. So in certain cases, you may have to use one over the other. Let's go ahead and execute this program, and we'll see what it does. Oh, okay, that was a sign that my EV3 robot is actually running out of battery. So, but yeah, try that on your own and see if it works. So yeah, that was the lesson. For now, if you want one extra challenge, the challenge is going to be to move your robot forward until the touch sensor is pressed. Move backward, take an 180-degree turn, and then move the robot forward again until the touch sensor is pressed, and then just continue that. So a hint is that you're going to need one big loop, but for now, just try that out on your own, and I'll see you guys next time.